This guy has been a mentor, a guru, a teacher, an operator, a biomed, and many more. I'll let you give us the 20,000 view of it, Danilo. But I just want to thank you. I heard you recently celebrated 50 years as a dialysis technician, as a biomedical technician, as an operator, in the same location as you started. So
Yep.
without further ado, I want to welcome, you guys know him. Hopefully you love him. If you don't love him already, you'll love him after tonight, Danilo Concepcion.
Oh, thank you, Michael. Yeah, looking at the participant list, actually, I don't recognize most of the people on the list, so I don't know if they know me or not. But uh, June 23rd was actually 50 years in my dialysis experience. Prior to that, I was actually a corpsman in the Navy.
Yes.
I'm a Vietnam veteran, and May of 1975, I was discharged from the Navy, honorable. And then June of 1975, I started working at St. Joseph Hospital.
That's
So
crazy, man.
not much of a break.
Yeah.
And been there at the hospital, like I said, being a technician for all those years in one facility, not owned by any corporate, but hospital based. So it was a fantastic experience. And hopefully I can answer or share some of the things that I've seen and done in the 50 years that I've been in dialysis. So shoot questions, go ahead.
Thanks again for being here, Danilo. I think I've been bugging you for a couple years to have this sort of opportunity where we share with the local students and kind of the network that we've got at Dialysis Education Services. Some of the people know you, Danilo. We're getting told that you're the hero, and I got to admit that I've looked up to you for a long time. Been lucky enough to call you a friend. Again, thank you so much. My interactions with you, Danilo, have mainly been through, again, that personal experience and the staff that you led at St. Joe's with the home dialysis. So we know you've got that background. I've seen you on the clinical floor. You also participate in the hospital in a center that really provides, I think, all of the services, all of the modalities of care for the patients that you serve. Can you tell us, like, has it been strictly on the biomedical side? You're a water expert. I know you had an operational procedure. Were you
Yeah.
also a clinical person? Like, did you ever do the
Yes,
patient care?
yes. Yeah, actually, if everyone is familiar with the NNCC certification that is required for technicians to practice, that is mostly clinical.
Mhm.
There is no biomedical test certification through NNCC. I was actually one of the original authors of those questions
That's
that they
right.
have to answer. Including the CCHTA exam. So clinical was a large part of my experience, and then biomedical too. Because again, once you become a biomedical engineer, you don't lose the clinical aspects.
That's right.
And in my institution, and I think it should be the same in all institutions, is that in order to be a biomed, you have to serve as a clinical caregiver.
I
You
love
have
that.
to serve on the floor because
Yeah.
if you're a biomed and don't know about dialysis, how do you appreciate what you're doing with the machines that ultimately affects your patients?
Could an
So,
analogy be driving a car, or I should say fixing cars, but never having driven one?
yep, exactly. No, I like that analogy actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, I have clinical experience and biomedical experience, and seen it, done that. I was in the very beginning of our industry in the early '70s, where technology wasn't in place, where automation controlled a
Yeah.
lot of things. We did a lot of things manual,
Hmm.
and so we learned by the seat of our pants. And I've told this story before: is that back then we didn't have conductivity meters,
Yeah.
and when we mixed large vats of solution, the only way that we can validate and verify that we added the salt was to actually do the finger test.
Test
The
it.
finger test
Taste
was
it.
you dip your finger and taste it.
That's crazy,
So,
man.
so yeah, and it's progressed since then, so through the years to what we have now, which is automation that has its positive, but also has its negative.
Yeah. So Danilo, let's kind of hit the theme as far as tightening a safety net. Do you have a specific mindset, a specific culture that you've maybe grown, built among your teams that has guided you through your career? Safety, quality?
Yeah, there's one thing, we have now what, 800, over 800,000 patients that receive dialysis in this country.
Mm.
So if you look at my numbers, if they're receiving 3 treatments each, that's millions and millions of treatments that are done
Yeah.
by our caregivers, nurses and technicians, and their safety obviously hinders on their skill and their knowledge and what they do on the floor. But look at our industry is very unique in that I don't think any other discipline does as much treatment per day as we do in dialysis.
Yeah.
But yet each day there are millions of safe dialysis that are performed. There are some outlying. So in general, I think for safety purposes, we're very, very diligent at doing what needs to be done for safety.
Agreed. Agreed.
And then my mindset too is that that's driven me through the years is actually I look at this one phrase that's always shared, and I've given this in some of my presentation, is that dialysis is a life-sustaining procedure,
Mhm.
but a life-threatening process.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so
Okay.
life-sustaining treatment, life-threatening procedure. So if you look at it that way, you pay close attention to what you're doing. Yeah.
That's very powerful. I think that no matter what you're doing, I'm sure your experience in the military as well, like you get lazy, you get comfortable, you get hurt, right? And when you have complex procedures like dialysis that become so routine, like you said, these treatments, so many treatments, a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, same place, same time, same station, same patient, same prescription, quite often for long periods of time, it can get easy to make mistakes. So that diligence in providing those millions of safe treatments, I think is king.
Yeah, but I think the way our industry has moved kind of puts a little bit of damper in that safety is because we're now schedule centric. Got to maintain the schedule. We have
Yeah.
so many patients following each other that we've shortened that ability for us to do things exactly the way it needs to be done, have time with the patients because we need to maintain the schedule.
Yeah.
And then also too, with our dialysis of today, there are so many things that we need to perform simultaneously. It's called task stacking.
Yes.
That takes away from a major focus of what we need to do, which is that patient. So yeah, it's evolved to the point now. I think that we need to slow down, step back, and bring some of the mentality back that we used to have in the olden days. In the olden days, we used to make rounds as a team. One person would do the documentation, and the other person would take all the readings off of the machine, do the blood pressure. Next patient, we switched.
Hmm.
So we literally were very intimate with each other and the patient as far as that care is concerned. Now, technology, if you set your blood pressure system to the point where it doesn't alarm because of going out of limits or conductivity, there's a possibility that automation makes you ignore your patients. That to me is dangerous.
Great. One of our good friends, Richard Vanderplas, I think you've heard his conversation around technology and, the benefits, but also the risk. And I think that's one of the things that he pointed out was, the intimacy of going by and taking an actual blood pressure, looking your patient in the eye, asking them how they feel, getting a couple words in there with them at least,
Yep,
to
yep.
where now automatic settings. Do you find it that, uh, that intimacy is skipped? I mean, do you see staff that just let the automation go off, wait for an alarm?
Yes, and that happens way too often.
Yep.
And I hate to say that because again, they do these treatments day in and day out, thousands of times each year. Same thing, redundant. It becomes rote. And when something becomes rote, it's almost like a white noise
Yeah.
mentality.
Yeah.
And if there's no alarm, is there no danger? Which is a fallacy, because there are a lot of things that can happen without an alarm. Case
Yeah.
in point, I've been an expert witness in a number of litigations where involved exsanguination,
Venous needles.
venous needle dislodgement,
Yeah.
and the reason for that was that there was no alarm, because again, in some instances, you can have a needle dislodgement and the venous limit is not violated.
Yeah, I'd
Yes.
suggest everybody look that up in the literature. There's
Yep.
been several articles written over the last 15 years. I wrote one of them, as a matter of fact, when somebody brought it to my attention, and they asked me how many exsanguinations do you think happen a year? At the time, this was like 2012, Danilo, and there was a documented, which we know not everything's documented, of
Yep.
about 136 exsanguinations a year from venous needle dislodgement alone. And I thought to myself, man, if 136 people died in Walmart a year, they'd shut Walmart down. So I'm not trying to, hit a
No,
brag or anything,
exactly,
but
exactly.
this happens where there's all of us watching, right?
Yep. Well, I think what's happened is that because of the number of treatments that we do, and because the majority of these treatments have no consequences, we we relax.
Yeah.
We tend to relax that nothing is going to happen, because I dialyzed all of my patients yesterday, and here I am on Wednesday. There's I had no problem. So today I expect to do the same thing, because I'm going to do exactly the same thing,
Yeah,
which kind of makes you relax a little bit. It gives us a
absolutely.
false sense of security.
I
Yeah.
mean, I've heard a lot of people say, nothing's going to happen or nothing ever happens, right? What
Yeah.
what what do what have you seen over the 50 years, Danilo? And I just can't get my mind off the finger test. But what are the most common cracks, and what have made it through the 50 years and not been fixed?
As far as the treatment is concerned,
Yeah, as far as provision of the treatment, we can even go towards the maintenance and repair of the devices, the analysis of the water. What have
well,
been the most frequent cracks, and what's not been fixed yet?
well, as far as a lot of the safety cracks that existed, yes, the manufacturers have concentrated on making the machines much more safe, much more protective for the patients.
Hmm.
That is true. So technology in that sense has made safety a lot better. But in the flip side of the coin, again, because of what I said earlier, that makes us relax too much and be dependent too much on the machine to provide that safety features.
Yeah.
Yeah. So because we are schedule centric, because we have so many patients, what happens is that we take away the staff's ability to have the time, to have the focus on the patients and what they're doing. It's yeah, it's something that is difficult to control in today's industry. So the only way to fix those is obviously looking at um, the corporate and how they're actually doing dialysis and what kind of schedule they want people to maintain and what kind of gap they want in between patients. Technology is trying to make it simpler for patients, for staff to actually set up the machines to give them a little more time, but
Yeah.
that's not the answer to again, the patient's focus, excuse me, the staff's focus must be the patient.
Hmm.
They are the greatest single safety monitor in the entire treatment.
Yeah.
If staff does not accept or embrace that philosophy and that mindset, like I hate to say this, is that I know a number of people take shortcuts.
Yeah.
Number of people do not follow policies and procedures to try to make their adjustment to the schedule as best as possible. Again, they're trying to maintain the schedule,
Yeah.
but there are reasons for not taking shortcut, and there are reasons why policies and procedures are written the way they are. For
Agree.
example, I've seen too many times where people prime at high blood flow to get the circuit going right away,
Yeah.
not understanding that by priming quickly, you can actually airlock some of those fibers, which makes the surface area less, which
Yep.
makes efficiency of dialysis less. So those kind of things, I think knowledge is the key. And for us to give the ultimate and utmost safety, staff need to be engaged, staff need to be knowledgeable. It's not a job. This is an honorable profession that you've got to embrace it, network, learn as much as you can.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. In 50 years, if I stayed on the floor, I wouldn't have lasted 50 years. But I ventured out of the floor, networking in organizations, learning as much as I can, calling people that I knew a lot, like you, like Richard, and some of the other people in the industry, to learn as much as I can. You're not a silo when you're a patient. And I hate the term patient care technician, by the way.
Speak on it, man.
I hate that. I hate that.
You're going to raise up the audience right now. I know Richard's passionate.
Okay.
Yeah.
To me, an honorable name for what we do, you have respiratory therapist, right? You have radiology technician. Why are we not dialysis therapist?
Yeah.
Why are we patient care technicians?
Yeah.
When I tell people in the public I'm a patient care technician, do you know what they think I am? A nurse aide.
Yeah.
Working on the floor, emptying bedpans. And again, not to say that that is not a critical function, but what we do as technicians is above that. We do invasive, dangerous procedures that's life-sustaining, but life-threatening.
Yeah.
And so we deserve a name, I think, that is much more suited for our place in the interdisciplinary team of dialysis therapists.
Well, let's stick on that for a second, and just to make it very clear, because I see a lot of people online that are dialysis technicians, whether they're CHTs, CCHTs, CCHTAs, and if I go look online for a job, I don't find any of that.
No. What if you look online for patient care technicians, you will see exactly what I said. Kaiser has it posted of what their patient care tech does. Hospitals have it, clinics have it, and none of it come close to what dialysis technicians are responsible for.
But if I go look for a job as a dialysis technician and I search on the websites, what do I see?
Yeah, you probably get patient care technician too.
Yeah. So yeah, Richard Vanderplas says, "Don't get me started." You know, it's unfortunate because I teach students, you know, throughout the week, and when it comes time for them to look for a job, they're like, "I don't see any CHT jobs."
Yeah.
They see this PCT, patient care technician job, right? So that can be very confusing. So let's talk about that training, competency, and then you know the human factor aspect of this. You spoke on it a little bit, but you know, what are the breakdowns in the human factor element of it? You talked of shortcuts, you talked of, you know, time constraints. And I can think about clinics that I've worked in, like kind of sister clinics, 18 and 18, same clinic or same organization, one clinic being you know, very hard to meet the schedule, and another clinic just being a breeze. Scheduling seemed to be a big factor to that. So what do you see as the human factors that are leading to these cracks, that are leading to these breakdowns, that are leading to these shortcuts, aside from what you've spoke on already?
Yeah. And again, every technician practicing dialysis has to be certified.
Yeah.
But certification doesn't give you the skill and the knowledge. It just gives you the minimum knowledge to actually pass the exam.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's, I think, where the downfall is in some of our training. And, you know, excluding your school is
Thank
that,
you.
yeah, excluding you is that when technicians are brought in as a new employee, they're told how to do dialysis. How to do dialysis is not knowing dialysis.
That's
you
right.
need the whys behind all the things. So if you ask a question to a technician, what does KUR stand for? What does what's KUF stand for? What does it do, or what is the hazard of using a high KUF dialyzer on a standard machine? If you can't answer those questions, you're not fully knowledgeable on dialysis.
Right.
You're just told how to do the things that is necessary to do that treatment for that day. And I think that's where one of the shortcomings of our industry is that we do not have formalized school throughout the country. There are colleges and universities that actually support programs for respiratory technicians, for x-ray technicians, but very few universities. I knew of one that actually had one, was Malcolm X College in
That's right.
Chicago,
Chicago. Yeah.
and I don't know if that exists anymore.
Yeah. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But you're right.
So
Higher education
again,
ignores us.
yeah, and dialysis is ignored throughout the nation, throughout public announcements, because when was the last time? It's getting more and more now with the new drugs. When was the last time you saw a, um, a public announcement or a commercial about dialysis? You now see all these new drugs saying extend or prolong or delay the progression of ESKD.
Yeah.
But again, that's not addressing ESKD.
Right.
We've got 800,000 people on dialysis, and you never hear anything about that through the media. You know? It's not a very romantic disease, I guess, for lack of a better term. You see
Yeah.
cancer being touted. You see cancer charities. You see cancer, muscular dystrophy telethon. I've never seen one for ESKD.
Yeah. It's and there's a lot of commentation out there today that really, you know, I don't know if you've seen the recent documentaries, the portrayal of dialysis business, but really what is dialysis? It's kind of unheard of. I talk a lot to high school students in their career pathways, and everybody wants to be a CNA, a MA, things like this. You talk to them about a dialysis technician, they're like, "What is that?" But you
Yeah.
ask them, do you have anybody in your family that's a type 2 diabetic, that's hypertensive, that has chronic kidney disease? And you'll see a ton of hands go up. Did you know there's an actual whole profession, I call it an
Yeah.
honorable profession, that is specializing in taking care of this, pretty
Yeah.
large group of Americans?
Yeah, someone has to champion glorifying our position, our profession.
Yeah.
And again, I think that's part of the reason why they're trying to perpetuate the acronym PCT, because again, it's not very glorified as far as a professional title.
Yeah.
In
Doesn't
fact, I don't
differentiate.
consider it a professional title. I
Yeah.
consider it to be a label.
Yeah. And I mean, I've had many students that they are PCTs in the hospital setting, and then they see this role and they're like, I'm already a PCT.
Yeah, yeah,
What am
yeah,
I going to do different? Well, you're going to do a lot different.
yeah.
Even though the title is the same on the job opening, and I preach this at the school as well, is, honor and be proud of what you're about to gain as far as certification. Danilo, I love what you said, that certification doesn't actually enable you to provide the care. It's, tests don't make you know what you're doing, right? You can
Yep,
pass a test if you're a good test taker. I'm a good test taker.
yep, yep.
But that doesn't mean and that shouldn't be what you're studying for. It's a formality of doing what we do as far as
Yeah.
taking these tests and gaining the alphabet behind our name. But I love, again, what you said, the whys. That's very important. Get into the details, get into the cracks.
Yep, it is. And again, a good test taker, like you said, doesn't necessarily make a great caregiver.
That's right.
I'll give you a case in point is that I was on the commission for one of the organizations, for the testing organizations, and I saw some of the applications, and an individual was actually been in dialysis for 30 years. Everyone loved him. Everyone thought that this person knew dialysis in and out, left and right. The problem is he didn't know how to take a test.
Yeah.
So he sat for the test over 10 times, failed
Oh,
at 10
wow.
times.
Wow.
Yeah. And so this great caregiver who couldn't take tests because there were several factors why he couldn't function as a dialysis technician because he wasn't passing the test. But yet you have technicians that are very well at taking tests
That are
that you
horrible.
didn't want your mother to be taken care of
Yeah.
by.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
so it is knowledge. Knowledge is actually engagement and knowledge in your profession is actually the key, the utmost key to making our patients safe. Because
Yeah.
that's not a patient. I never look at that person in the chair as a patient. I always look at, because again, we see these people every other day. We know them better than some of our family. We see
Yeah.
them more than our family. They
Yeah.
become very close to us. So I don't consider them a patient. I consider them someone that has a relationship with me.
Yep.
And I treat it that way. Yeah.
So our buddy Richard Cabrera said to us last week that every person in that chair, and I know I've heard this from you as well, is somebody. I think I've heard you say, treat that was it you who said treat them like your mother, not your mother-in-law?
Yeah.
Sorry, mom-in-law.
Yeah, no, they're family members. They're individuals. You
Yep.
know, some of them go to work before they come to dialysis, and some go to work after dialysis. They're they're people that are on the dialysis. Period.
Yep.
They're not patients.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Danilo, let's shift a little bit. I think we've got the mindset. We've got the mindset of safety, but also the really the mindset of delivering care, true care, right? Let's shift over to how long have you been on the biomedical side, the water side? What year did that
Um,
start?
two, probably 20 years,
20
25
years.
years. Yeah, but again, I never left the clinical either. So
Right, right.
yeah.
So, but you started on that side in the biomedical about 2005, something like that?
Well, actually, probably prior to that, because I was invited to the Amy committee in 1999.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay. So yeah.
yeah, so before that, so I was invited to be part of that committee that actually develops the standards for our water and for our technology industry.
Yep.
So yeah, since then, so most of the things that people have to comply with as far as Amy standards, I've actually had a hand in developing also. Yeah.
I know I'm gonna maybe upset one of our attendees here, but I remember when California put out a test, and I don't know if you remember this, but I called you up and I was like, "Hey, Danilo, what's the monogram for reuse? What's the monogram? What's the monogram for water?" And you're like, "Oh man, let me look back on that. I wrote them, but
RD47.
I don't remember which number it was. I think it was the reuse one, right?" And
RD47. Yep.
it was on the certification exam. I remember telling some of the authors, I was like, you guys got to get this off of there because nobody's going to know this that's going through school or trained in organizations, right? But what would you say from that biomedical side, that biomedical history you have? What are the top cracks or the top methods in preventing breaks in safety from the biomedical side? Everything from machine maintenance to testing to repair. What are the top things you see there?
Well, the first thing you have to look at is how often is a machine being pulled during treatment?
Yeah.
Okay, if your answer is too frequent, there's something wrong with your biomedical program.
Yes.
And a biomedical program, again, like everything else, is somewhat conditional in how much money a facility is willing to invest in preventive maintenance. There are some minimal things that you can do for preventive maintenance, but yet there's some true things that you must and should do for preventive maintenance that will cost you a little bit more money to make
Mm,
sure that your machines aren't being pulled off the floor while our treatment is being performed. So a true preventive maintenance program is not a repair program.
right.
And in our industry, we tend to operate as if a preventive maintenance program is a repair program.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait for an issue. It's reactive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because again, you're spending money if it's not the old adage, if it's not broken, don't fix it.
Yeah.
No, we don't want to have it break on the patient.
Yeah.
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 And
Yeah.
other things, yeah, don't if it's not broken, don't fix it is great in some things, but not on dialysis machines.
So do you wait for your engine light to go on, Danilo, or do you take
Oh
care of
no,
that stuff?
my unfortunately and irritatingly, my car calls actually sends an appointment to my dealership when it's time
Right.
to do that.
Mine too. Mine too. I think I saw your car. You got a nice one.
Yeah,
Yeah, mine too.
yeah,
So what about on the water side, Danilo? I mean, I give you a story. 2000, I trained. I did an internship, right?
yeah.
Like my clinical experience, so that I could be certified. And the guy that was training me, he's still my friend today. Really good guy. Uh, the patients loved him. He knew what he was doing on the floor. And it finally came day to where he was the guy that was going to check water. So he took me back there to do the water log, the daily water log, right? And I'll never forget this because, I had already been helping my uncle at home. I was familiar with testing on a single device and what we had to do there. Never worked with a central water system, but he said this to me. He said, just write down what it said the last day. And I looked at him. I was like, what are you talking about? Like those weren't exact words. I won't say the words I said to him, but I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, nothing's gonna happen. And I was like, I had to school this guy as his intern that no, we do these checks for a reason, right? So what
Yeah.
about on the water side? What do you see as failures or cracks? Whether
Well,
it's in, go ahead.
that's one of the things that is a failure is uh, because you do testings and the results are the same every day. You tend to do what that person said, to just write down the values the other day.
Hmm.
And there's been too many times that CMS or DHS has cited facilities for doing that. So it does
Yeah,
exist.
pencil
Um,
whipping.
yeah, yeah. So to make to make that program safe, an audit is necessary.
Yeah.
You have to have in place audits to make sure that people are doing what they're supposed to be doing and doing it the right way. For
Hmm.
example, the testing for total chlorine. Some
Yeah.
people are doing that incorrectly, not following exactly what it says on the bottle, but
Yep.
they're coming up with the results. The results may be false negative, but
Right.
again, yeah. So it's complying with how it's supposed to be done, documenting it and doing it every day, regardless of how many times you get the same results. Because one of the things that's necessary in water, there is very few things in water treatment that actually does an acute critical reaction to patients.
Hmm.
Everything else is trended. Yeah.
Right.
Even total chlorine passing through your carbon tanks does not create an acute problem with the patient. It's an accumulative consequence, meaning that you see a reduction in hemoglobin over time. It's not that
Hmm.
boom, you see blood going into the dialyzer one color and coming out Kool-Aid on the other side.
Yeah.
It's not that grave.
Hmm.
The subtlety is what's the problem. It's over time. So its trending is necessary, including pressures, TDS, softener. All those things need to be trended. It's not acutely.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep. Danilo, I can't help but, and I share this with students a lot. You mentioned like networking. We're here for continuing education. When I started, I think the colony forming units for dialysate were like 2,000.
yep,
Today, we're recommended at like less than 100, right?
it's 100.
What else are we? I mean, what have you seen over the years as far as that trending and the contaminant levels with water? What have you seen that's like night and day? And if we were still doing the same thing as we did, 25, 50 years ago, where would we be at with these trends?
Yeah, well, the greatest obviously change is the endotoxins. Again, yes, you're right, is that when RD5 came out in 2000, it was, was it 2000? Yeah, year 2000, the limit was 2000 CFUs. There was no endotoxin requirements
Hmm.
unless you were doing reuse. And then back then, reuse was actually 5 endotoxin units.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's now with the current 23500 series, which is the latest ME standards, your endotoxin limit is 0.5 and with dialysate and 0.25 action level, and then point 0.25 for water and 0.125 action level. So it's dramatically decreased because we know that over time that exposure to endotoxins, whether it passes the membrane or not, causes inflammatory responses in our patients.
Yeah.
And that's why it's reduced to that level now.
Yeah. Yep.
So it's dramatically increased because we know what it's doing to our patient. When in the early 1960s, when we first started dialyzing our patient, we were using tap water.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the problem with back then was that the number of patients being treated and the longevity of the patients, we didn't see the consequence of using tap water.
Right.
Not until patients survived longer did we start seeing that tap water is contributing something not good for our patients. And so it's one of those things that we look at as far as advancement is, okay, is it doing anything to our patient? Then we have to go ahead and reduce the concentration. And that's how it has been over time. And that's why it's at the level now that we have. Yeah.
So we learn from the data. In other words, I mean, how important is data to this profession, and what have you seen as far as slips and I mean, maybe just a lack of appreciation for data?
Again, because the results are our system is so well that yes, you'll get the same reading a lot.
Yep.
And that's the downfall of actually relaxing us not to actually do it daily to see that trend in the data. So data is very subtle. It can be very subtle as changing, but
Yeah.
you see the changes, and that's
Yep.
what you act on. You don't wait till your RO membrane is at TDS 70.
Right.
You see it
Yep.
creeping up from single digit to over 10 to over 20, and you
Yep.
take actions on it. And that's what data is for, is to actually trend and react before it becomes a problem.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then colorblind reading strip, Richard actually posted on that. Yeah, there are some accommodations that are not in the process of actually being developed to do strip reading for those
Yeah.
that are colorblind. But unfortunately, the way that the regs are written, we have to accommodate for people with color blindness.
Anybody had that problem that's with us here? Have color blindness and been maybe excluded from the performing any reagent test? Would love to hear from you in the chat. Oh, there we got one. I remember this. It was a really great technician, but had a little bit of a rough time because of that exclusion for a while, and kind of people saying, "Oh, you don't have to do it. Why does he not have to do it?" If I'm
Yeah,
remembering correct, Ruben.
yeah.
So tell
But
us
again,
about some. Go
yeah,
ahead.
it is in process now. It is now in hopefully future development to actually develop a strip reader that does differentiate color.
That's awesome. I'm sure it comes with a cost that is going to be part of the challenge to implementation.
Yep.
Danilo, tell us about some close calls. You've seen a lot. We've seen the implementation of locks on the water doors now. We've got the water logs. People have caught things that were they were intentional
Yep.
type of issues over the past. You guys can just go look up things like attempted injuries or attempted harm in dialysis centers. There was even they deemed her the serial killer nurse in, what is it, Lufkin, Texas, right? Have you seen any close calls related to just competency or even related to intention?
Well, again, the most famous is that Lufkin, Texas, where the nurse was actually injecting bleach into the patient. But there's another similar thing that was actually a close call, It actually didn't affect the patients. Hers did. If you remember a few years back in South Carolina, a technician that was terminated
Yep.
actually wanted to harm the facility as to the gravest level that he could. So he contaminated their holding tank, storage tank, with a contaminant that actually was toxic to the patients.
Yep.
Now, it became a close call because the facility, for one reason or another, always had it in place in their policy and practice that every morning their system is checked for bleach,
Yep.
regardless of whether it was bleached the night before or not. But every morning, that was one of their practices. And that was prior to the person dumping bleach into their holding tank.
Yeah.
So that was a great catch and a close call. And again, some of the close calls that we have in other things is that, when you see blood dripping underneath someone's chair, but again, the remedy or the protection against that is the staff being attentive and diligent as to what's happening to the patients. And again, that's critical, is that everyone on the floor must be diligent at all times, not just sometimes, but at all times.
Thank you for reinforcing that. That's something I preach daily. Danilo, do you ever do your colleagues, do you ever recruit the patients in that observation? In that,
You know what? Some of we don't recruit. They actually are very attentive. Those that are. Some of your patients, unfortunately, regardless of what you do,
yeah.
will sit, go to sleep, or watch
Yep.
TV, and that's
Yep.
it. Because again, that's why they're in outpatient dialysis rather than at home, is because again, that need to have somebody take care of them and watch them
Yeah.
instead of them being independent. And I think that's one of the barriers for people going home is they want that type of treatment rather than being independent. But
Yeah.
yeah, patients who are diligent will be diligent. Patients that are not, it's just like staff.
That's right. That's right. Yep.
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
did my camera pop off?
Yeah, it
Yep.
did.
There we go. Sometimes it shuts off on me. Oh, hold on. Give me 1 second. I'm not going to leave you alone, Danilo.
That's okay.
There we go. Wrong camera. All right. Sorry about that. So
Okay.
let's talk about you mentioned that you had an opinion, and I'm not sure if it's part of the organization that you worked with, policy that biomedical technicians have the clinical background as well. You know,
Yep.
I talk a lot about, just through experience and observation, that sometimes we see the team as more intradisciplinary than interdisciplinary. And it's like, it's that person's job, that's the nurse. They
Yep.
take care of the catheter patient. I don't have to touch the machine, a tech
Yep.
can have
Yep.
that. Or the nurse will say, oh, that's the tech's job, and the social work, and just so on and so on. So what's your advice from the experiences that you've had as far as collaboration between the interdisciplinary team, specifically on the clinical and the biomedical side, that would close up some of these cracks that we see in care, make us more able to have the catches when the
Yeah.
catches need to be made?
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have a good answer for that. Is because everyone's attitude is different.
Mm,
To me, you know, doing things above and beyond what you need to do or what you're assigned to do is an attitude. It's a mindset. You
yeah.
can't teach attitude.
Mm,
And so that's one of the things that I think is critical, is that when you have staff, it, you need to look for staff that have that attitude, that altruistic attitude, that helpful attitude, that collegial attitude.
yeah.
You just don't want to bring somebody in that just wants a job.
Yeah.
You want to
Yeah.
bring somebody in that wants a profession. And then when you have that, it's, yes, everyone has a role, but everyone's role is for one thing and one thing only:
That's right.
make my patient safe. So
That's right.
whatever it takes to make my patient safe, I will do. And I think that's the attitude that everyone has to have when they're taking care of our ESKD patients. They're
I'm
not
curious to hear.
patients.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear from those of you.
They're not patients. They're people we know.
Danilo, you kind of stabbed me in the heart a little bit, because I try so hard to teach that. I really do. That the attitude of interdisciplinary, to cross the lines, not in scope, but to know, if I'm on a team, that I'm on first base, you're on second base, you're shortstop, you're third. Like, we all got to know each other's moves, and I'm going to make sure that I'm cueing when I can. I really consider dialysis techs as the conduit of information among the interdisciplinary team. I'm just curious to hear from those that are in attendance with us. Um, can we teach this? Can we lead? Can we role model this? Like, how do we get to that point where we're truly operating as an interdisciplinary, a cohesive team? So go ahead and throw your comments in there while we move on to
Yeah.
the next question. Culture of
And
safety.
yeah,
Go ahead,
I
Danilo.
agree with you. And I agree with you is that, lead by example.
Yeah, yeah.
Got to lead by example. Yeah.
I mean, you've taught so many people so much, Danilo, and I think in the culture and the attitude that you've brought forward, I think you have taught that. Can you change a duck to a chicken? No, but can you make them perhaps a chicken quack like a duck? I don't know. You can't change them 100%. But can you change some of
Yep.
the behaviors, or lead by example in those behaviors? I hope so, and that would break my heart if I was speaking from my soapbox so often,
Yep.
to not
Yeah.
actually influence, especially my students, in that manner. To we have people come in, hey, I want a job, I'm looking for a job change, and it's like, oh, well, let's talk first, because
Yeah.
this is not a job.
Yeah.
This is something, like you said, you play for, if you play baseball and you play for, just example, the Dodgers, you go into this profession, your team is the patient that you're taking care of. We all play for that person,
Yep.
for the
Exactly.
win. Yeah.
Yep. 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 Yeah.
So Danilo, let's open up for questions. I'm going to ask one advice from you. Next generation, if you could give one piece of advice to the new dialysis techs, to the new CNAs, to the new RNs, to the people that are coming in to specialize in care regarding patient safety, what would that advice be?
Again, the one phrase I started with, it's a life sustaining treatment, a life threatening procedure. You've got to embrace that mindset, and also too that these are individuals. They're individuals that we get to know because of the number of times that we see them day in and day out. Dialysis or ESKD is unique in healthcare. Cancer patients come in for routine treatments, but not as frequent as they do for dialysis.
Yeah,
So the intimacy is there. And for people coming in, this is a profession. Learn as much as you can, engage yourself in all the things that are available to you, whether it be organization or these type of seminars or these type of educational things. Learn as much as you can.
give us some advice on some of the professional organizations we should be looking into.
Oh, again, for technicians, there's the National Association of Nephrology Technicians, Technologists. And then there's also the National Kidney Foundation that have the Council for Nephrology Nurses and Technicians. And then, you have some local organizations, like, I don't know what their acronym now, but they used to be California Dialysis Council, is
Yep.
local. And you even have Southern California's National Kidney Foundation that offers education and offers seminars. So
Yes. Yes.
networking, the one thing that networking buys you is that you get to learn that you're not alone in some of the things that you experience or some of the things that you have problems with. Networking opens up such a great avenue for you to actually deal or address what you're concerned about in our industry.
That's right. Richard Vanderplas, open up your mic and your camera, please. Anybody else want to jump in and ask some questions of the legend Danilo Concepcion or share some stories? If you do, go ahead and drop it in chat. Richard, you said you got a story for us?
Yeah, so hey, Danny and Mike. Obviously,
Richard.
we've known each other for 1,000 years. So, but one of the stories that really kind of resonates with me is I'm a senior vice president of a I don't know, we had at the time probably 20, 30 clinics, I don't know. But I walked into a unit and I knew this patient and he was not on the machine when I walked in, and we're just calling Mr. Jones. And I looked at the clock and I said, "You should already be on the machine." And he said, "Well, they're short today. There's a lot of people running around." So I looked around the room, everybody's busy. So I said, "All right." So I grabbed a gown, grabbed a face mask, and he looked at me with big eyes like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm going to put you on the machine." And he's like, "You're a VP. What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm going to put you on." So yeah, it took me 20 minutes to stick the needles and put them on the machine, but I did it. And later the staff asked me, like, "Why did you do that?" And I'm like, "You're all short. I don't want you to be caught behind, on taking them off or whatever's going on. And I would never ask you to do anything that I wouldn't do." And so realizing that just because I'm a senior vice president of the company, I would always take care of the patient. So, and it's all the staff appreciated it, and they didn't realize that what I was doing at the time. But I'm like, "Look, I'll go plunge a toilet. I don't care. I'm always going to take care of you guys."
Was it like riding a bike, Richard?
Yeah,
Or
it
what?
took a little bit. I mean, he had a fistula, so it was big as, whatever. It didn't take a lot to, stick the needles or whatever. But he was a good guy. But again, he was scared because he didn't realize that I knew what I was doing.
I'd be scared of you no matter what. What are you talking about?
Yeah, everybody's scared of me. So, but
thanks for that story. So the theme of that is what? Don't ask people to do what you wouldn't do and then work as a team?
Yeah, no, look, I wouldn't ask you to do anything that I wouldn't do personally. I mean, literally, like, we have to work as a team. You got to get in there and do it. I mean, sometimes you just have to go above and beyond. I mean, I learned stuff, I have to go spin lab tubes. I got to go mop a floor. I got to go do this or that.
Yep.
So never, the cracks in the system are, don't ever like assume that you have a one job. I mean, learn multiple things, and that'll actually elevate you to other positions. So
I couldn't agree with that more. I think, per Steve Jobs, right? Even going into courses that he dropped out of in college, how much did they benefit the world with some of the products that we see in Apple, right? Any other questions? Richard, by the way, so Danilo just celebrated 50 years, same location. How much tenure do you have in this industry, in this profession?
46.
46 years. So you're creeping up right behind Danilo.
I will never catch him, but I'm still here.
Guys, those of you who are attending, you've got two industry leaders now on the cameras. Any questions for either of these guys related to safety, related to their careers, related to changes over the 46 years, close call stories? Now's the time.
Come on, make them go.
Make it rain.
Make it rain.
All right. Well, Danilo, this is long overdue. I look forward to seeing you at the next local event. Hopefully you're going to give us the honor of continuing to attend the conferences. Did you just have an announcement? Are you semi-pro now? Are you retired fully? What's your status?
Oh, no, I still have my consulting business.
All right. So you're still going to be out there helping the community. hopefully continuing the education. I still got a lot to learn from you.